Okay, welcome to Surface Interval with Inah Shark. It's been a while I haven't recorded a podcast, and today I have a very special guest, James. We have James here, and recently we've been doing a very interesting project, and obviously we're gonna talk about that. And James, you can introduce yourself. I have hard time saying your last name.
It's a tricky one
It's
for
the trick.
sure.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
introduce yourself and what do you do, and yeah, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, no, sounds great. Happy to be here. Excited to be here. It's an amazing project. It's a beautiful place. First time here, hopefully not the last. I'm Dr. James Sulikowski, the director of the Coastal Oregon Marine Experiment Station and co-PI of the Big Fish Lab with Dr. Taylor Chappell and Alex McInturf at Oregon State University. And I'm a reproductive physiologist, and one of my focus species is sharks, all sorts of sharks. And I'm really interested in mama sharks. So, where do they go? Where do they give birth? How can we study them in different ways in which we did in the past? So, linking non lethal methods like an ultrasound to see if a shark is pregnant and putting a satellite tag on them to see where they go. And we also put satellite tags inside them. We developed a new tag called intrauterine satellite tag, or we affectionately call it the birth alert tag or the BAT. And that actually allows us to see where mama sharks give birth. So we can protect their corridors and find the areas where they give birth. We can understand how we can really protect both mom and baby sharks. So I'm glad to be here in the Maldives to see, more about your tiger sharks. And that's pretty exciting for me.
Yeah. So before we get into that, how do you like get into this reproductive science, and what interests you to get into this very particular space, which I never heard of,
Yeah.
like it's something. How did you start that?
Yeah, it was a long journey for sure. I've always been interested in fish growing up. I did a lot of fishing, but I didn't get really involved with the ocean until I was in graduate school. So, and I started with skates and stingrays. So a long, long, long time ago. And the way in which we collected reproductive information, like were sharks pregnant or were stingrays pregnant, we had to sacrifice or kill them. And so I really got interested in developing and learning and evolving ways in which we could do that without having to kill them. And so it started with taking a blood sample and looking at the hormone concentration. So humans produce testosterone and estradiol during the reproductive cycles, right? And if we can do that in other species, then we could do the same thing. We can track the reproductive cycles, and we can do that in sharks and stingrays. And so start with the blood sample. But the problem with the blood sample is it takes time to analyze to get that information, whether to know it's pregnant or not, or where what type of reproductive stage she might be in. And so we sort of worked with a company, EI Medical, to develop an ultrasound that we could take in the field, but also we could take underwater. And that sort of brought me to this stage in my career. So it's long, 20 some years of getting to where I'm at now, of just working with a lot of great people and kind of studying really hard along the way.
Yeah, you mentioned, when you started, obviously before a lot of these technologies that is available right now. Back in the days, you guys were um
Hmm.
sacrificing animals, in order to understand um how they give birth, or like, I don't know. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, I'm curious. Is there ethics behind it?
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
kill it? How do you, like, get permits to do
Yeah.
these kind of things? And
Great question. So most of our work have been either with like a fishing industry. And so they would go out and catch what they were going to eat. And then we would just use those specimens. So they would take what they wanted, and then we would take what we wanted. And so it was part of that economic sort of production chain, right? We didn't have to actually go out and, sacrifice animals. We've also worked with groups like federal governments that do surveys to look at stock assessments, like how many uh, species are in a certain area, how susceptible are they to capture stress or fishing stress. And, for those studies, they would sacrifice them, and they would take their certain parts to understand what they needed, and then they would work with us or other experts on different aspects that we could help understand more about the animal. So the ethics behind that is you never want to sacrifice an animal that's endangered or protected, right? You just can't do that. And so for a lot of those species, they are considered data deficient, like we just don't know, right, anything about them. And so that was sort of how this all got developed as well is, okay, so how do we study those animals, right? We don't want to really kill them. We don't want to sacrifice them. And we need to develop a new way to do it. And this is where the ultrasounds and the blood and, linking it with satellite tags all kind of came into play. And the hope is that now we can utilize that information that we're really getting to the base of using these non-lethal techniques, and how can we now apply them across the broad spectrum, right? Across other animals that normally might you know be sacrificed for research.
And what kind of animals still they like sacrifice? Do you know like anybody who's doing that? Like, or do they still do it, or it's like very
Yeah.
rare to do it now?
A lot of what's happening is there's a lot more thought process behind it, right? Now it's like, oh, let's go out and capture a bunch of tiger sharks and sacrifice them and see. We've evolved as a sort of like a science. So in the early 60s, 70s, 80s, we didn't know too much about these animals. So hey, let's go out and sacrifice them and see what they have inside them, right? And we've learned that hey, that's probably not the best way to do it. Um, for some techniques, you have to sacrifice, unfortunately, to age the animal. But if you can collect it from an animal that's going to be eaten, then it I think the ethics behind it is a lot more easily to swallow for most people. And I think that's where what we try to work with is that aspect of it. Um, so we're really in that aspect is the commercial fish, right? You go out and catch it. How many can you catch? How many do you have to leave back? And that information all can be gathered from a fishery, right? And keep it sustainable.
So you guys work with a lot of fisheries and
Yeah.
fish markets
Yeah.
and those kind of places. And it's like, is there very specific places you guys go? I know, like, shark fishing happen, like, I don't know, Mexico,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
in some parts of US also there's like fishing tournaments and stuff. Do you guys go to those places and take your samples and do like the research that you need to do on those places, or?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Most of our work now, in fact, all of our work now is focused on using the new techniques that we've developed. So when we go to Mexico, when we go to French Polynesia, Israel, wherever, it's always working with animals that we're keeping alive. So ultrasounding them, yes, they're pregnant, putting a tag on them, seeing where they go. That's sort of where our research now has kind of evolved. And we leave that other sort of stock assessment component to it, working with the fisheries, working with those to other scientists that are that's more of their specialty now.
Mhm. How does this did you develop this ultrasound thing, or like was somebody else developed it?
So the company we work with is EI Medical, and they're amazing. Very open to, I guess, suggestions how to improve technology or use of their product. And they had developed a very rugged veterinary grade ultrasound. So imagine a vet in maybe even the Maldives, right? That has to go to house to house to house to check a cat or dog or whatever it might be. A vet in safari, right? Looking at elephants or whatnot, or at a zoo. Um, this thing, you can drop it, it can get wet, it can actually go underwater, and it's okay. Uh, and so we started using their product more and more and more. And then we kind of got to the point where, well, there's opportunities to study animals under the water. Would you be interested in developing an underwater ultrasound? And they, were really interested in that because they aquariums and other things that might use it. And then we just started working together to develop it. And so I tested a lot of their products for them, worked with them in the design, like, hey, we need this, we need that. How are we going to make this work? And so it was like they had the technology, I kind of had the idea, and together we now have, I guess, phase 3 of this project, which is the Aquanaut, which is the underwater ultrasound that we've been using for this project here.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it and used it also. The results are pretty
Yeah,
impressive stuff. You just literally, uh, y- you just touch the shark with
yeah,
the, how do you call it
the
then,
probe,
the
yeah,
probe, yeah, and
transducer, yeah,
then you can see if the shark is pregnant or not. Run us through the of course the technology, and how do you do it, like
yeah,
in different places. I
hmm,
saw some of the videos in Bahamas, you
yeah,
caught the sharks.
yeah,
Here we didn't catch any, we
right,
just literally waited the sharks to come close and use the probe, and like, yeah, give us like a little bit
yeah.
details of how you using this in different conditions and different places.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's we have you can think of it as two separate units. One we call it topside, which is that rugged veterinary grade unit, and we take that on the boat with us. And for that, we're actually going out to catch sharks, and and bring them to the boat, and see if they're pregnant, and then put a satellite tag on them to see where they go. Uh, and that process, is something that, we're very careful with the shark, right? And people. Nobody wants to be, injured, and we want the shark to survive. So, these tags that we put on, think about one shark may get 3 different tags, and swim away with $5,000 worth of gear on them, and we want that shark to survive and be in good shape. So part of this process is understanding how to handle that shark, and make sure that it does swim away safe. So imagine on a boat, you've got a really big rod and reel, and you put a big bait out, and the shark bites it. We reel that shark in, and then we secure it alongside the boat, with 3 different ropes: one around the tail, one around the body, and kind of one around the pectoral fins to keep it nice and secure. We roll it over, and it goes into what we call tonic immobility. So it almost goes to sleep. So it's really calm. And then that's when we can start to work on it and conduct the ultrasound scan. And an ultrasound scan that we use is, again, like, no, just like a human would get at the doctor's office, or a cat would get at a vet's office. And it
We
works on.
tried it out in
Yeah,
our
we
cat.
did. Yeah, there was some pregnant cats.
Yeah, at the dive shop,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the first time I ever did that. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, we knew we just look inside the shark to see if they're pregnant or not. If they're pregnant, then they start to get all those tags. The whole process takes about 5 minutes, and then we release the shark and wait for it to start transmitting its locations. What we did was sort of the next evolution of that, is to do it underwater when you don't have to capture the shark, kind of free swimming. And the Tiger Zoo area here was absolutely, it was crazy. It was insane. Like, I was not expecting that. We've done this work in Bimini with hammerheads, and Mexico with bull sharks, and it was very, I'd say, organized. But also I've done in Tiger Beach with tiger sharks, and it was very organized, right? The animals are handled or fed, so they kind of form a line. One gets fed, one leaves. So it's orderly, and we can pick out the shark that we want, and it swims by, and we scan it, and so we get good data. Here it was wild because sharks come in from all directions. Some 3 or 4 at a time. You had a couple that were just really bossy, and we couldn't get,
Rose.
Rose. She owns it, right? So she's pretty amazing. But it was incredible to do this in this kind of more of a free swimming, wild, I'd say, context. And the results are amazing. Like, this is the most we've used the unit in a row. So it's exciting to see it get a lot of use and see how it would respond. And the hope is, we can share this technology, right? When we talked about maybe getting a unit here, in other places. So that's the
Definitely,
goal.
yeah. I'm definitely interested in buying one, and obviously, which we're gonna talk more about, like the future.
Yeah.
But definitely, one of these is will be very ideal to keep it here. Um, like some of the outcomes that I think you work in with bull sharks in Mexico, in where was it?
In Bimini. Yep.
Bull sharks, not
Bull sharks are in Mexico. Yep.
yeah.
At Playa de Carmen. And
And what was the findings there? Like, did you guys got any exciting results in Mexico and Bimini, and as well
yeah,
as
yeah,
Tiger Beach?
yeah. It was super exciting. I mean, so Mexico was great because we were working with local NGOs there, Save Our Sharks and Pelagios Cunha, and bull sharks is a big focus of theirs, and where these dive operations take place is sort of like marine reserve. So how are the sharks using it? And one of the questions was, well, are the bull sharks pregnant? They're coming to these provision sites, and if so, you know, do those sites need to be expanded, right, to help those pregnant sharks? And we found the sharks were pregnant, so it was really exciting for everybody, and it adds another level of, I guess, uniqueness to the ecotourism, right? Not only are you coming to see bull sharks, but hey, these bull sharks are pregnant, and for maybe the average individual, that's kind of cool, and a bigger kind of selling point, to expand that. And for Bimini, it was super cool because there's a hammerhead there called Gaia, and she had been coming there for like 9 years, and all the operators and handlers knew her, loved her, was part of the family so much. And to tell them that she was pregnant was like mind blowing to them. Like people were crying, and it was very emotional because they had that connection to that shark, and to know that she was a mom and coming there. And the question always remains is, okay, where do they go after? And we can talk a little about that later on in the podcast, but those are always the questions. Where's mom? Where do they go after?
Yeah.
Right?
Have you ever done those acoustic tags or those kind of things for one of the pregnant sharks anywhere?
No, those are the next steps, particularly in Mexico. That's kind of what we want to do, is to tag those sharks and see where they go. Where are the, kind of birthing grounds, nurseries that these sharks are going to. And so we can protect them. So you imagine if mom's in a protected area, like a marine reserve, and she's got her babies, but then she leaves, right? And that migration corridor is going through, areas where there's commercial fishing, so it puts her at risk, puts her babies at risk. And then if she goes to an area to give birth that might have commercial industry there, right? Could be fishing, or it could be a resort, right? And then you've got, the interaction between humans in a couple of different ways. So that's kind of why we want to take these to different phases, is now to see, okay, how do we protect, the special, life history stage of this shark.
Yeah, I mean, tagging also. I know as a scientist, for sure, you can tell more details. But like if I talk to some of my friends or people not very aware of this technology, it's very skeptical.
Yeah.
You catch the shark and you have to cut it open and
Yeah.
put a tag in, and or sometimes the dorsal fin as well,
Mhm.
it get ripped,
Yeah.
and so many, like one can argue that it's harming the sharks more than actually,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no,
So
no, totally.
how do you respond to those comments? And
Yeah, no, they're obviously, when we do this, the goal is not to disrupt the shark or harm the shark as much as we can. The way that I kinda put it is, when we put these tags on, it's sort of like the shark getting an earring, right? It's quick, it's relatively painless, right? And technology has evolved now, where the tags aren't permanent, like they can fall off, right? And so the shark, after the tags have stopped recording data or transmitting data, they just fall off the shark, and so they no longer have to wear them. But the way the the nuts and bolts of what we use now has really changed as well. So back in the day, it was stainless steel, right? And it would rust on the shark and whatnot. And there was issues with that. Obviously, you don't want that. Now we use titanium um, bolts so that it's the same kind of material that we get in our hips for hip replacements. It's not going to rust. It's not going to hurt the shark. We put stainless steel bolts on those titanium or nuts on those titanium bolts, and those rust off, right? And then the tag falls off. And so after about a year or so, the shark isn't wearing a tag anymore. We've got great data for that year. There are other ways that there's instead of catching a shark and suturing it, right? Cutting it open and sticking a tag in it, then suturing it up. We can actually tag a shark underwater. We don't have to capture it, right? You just get a Hawaiian swing, a sling, and you get a like a dart, and you put a little tag on it, and you basically just stick it in the shark, and the shark swims away. And we can get 10 years of data with that tag, which is amazing.
10 years?
10 years.
So it stays inside 10 years?
Stays on the outside.
Oh,
Yep,
outside.
Yep, can stay on the outside for 10 years. It's like a little, looks like your thumb, basically dragging behind the shark. And that tag, that's an acoustic tag, which would be really cool to set up here because you could really engage the local community, because those acoustic tags have to have a receiver that's stationary, right?
Yes,
And
so every time it comes closer, it
pings it. Yep, and you collect that data and then download it and see, how long it was there, when it'll leave. And so that would be really cool to do. And the tags again are it's like a little earring, basically, the sharks wear.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess a lot of these technologies every year or every few years, is evolving.
Yeah.
And I have seen, I think Philippe always talk about this tag that you put it inside the mama sharks, and then when they're giving birth, that these tags also get what is that about?
The birth tag, yeah. So the birth tag is the newest sort of satellite tag that we developed with a company called Low Tech. And Low Tech again has been great about thinking about evolving their equipment, right, and their instruments. And so that tag goes inside mom, but you don't have to perform surgery on her. If you look at a shark as it swims by, at right in front of her tail, there's two pelvic fins, right? And there's a hole there, and that hole is called the cloaca, or the urogenital opening, and that's in females where they give birth, babies come out of, or she goes to the bathroom, right? And we insert this tag into the area in which she gives birth. So the tag actually goes in the cloaca up into her uterus with an applicator. And we pull the applicator out, the tag stays in. Tag looks like an egg, it's very small. So if you can imagine a tiger shark, for example, that has maybe, so a tiger shark has two uteri, one on each side of her body, and in that, each uteri, she may have 20 or more babies, right, that are 70 centimeters long. So something that's the size of an egg, that's inert, smooth plastic with an antenna that's very bendable and soft. She doesn't even know that it's in there with her. And then when she gives birth, the babies come out, and then the tag comes out with the babies, and we know exactly where she gave birth. And so that's sort of the evolution of this technology is, hey, we can see that a shark is pregnant. We can put a tag on mom to track where mom goes, and then we can put a tag in mom to see where mom gives birth. And so all those areas are important because migration corridors for protection, but also the area where birth takes place.
For this tag, you have to catch the shark, right? And then put it in.
Well, yeah, you do. We're trying to develop ways in which to do it where you don't have to for slower moving sharks. So like whale sharks or maybe even basking sharks, where we can come up and go right behind them and stick it in. Yeah. We're going to see how it works.
Have you scanned whale sharks with this ultrasound?
Not yet. And so I'm actually leaving here, going to Qatar to do that, which would be super cool. And the nice thing about this tech,
doesn't they have the largest aggregation of whale sharks?
That's what I hear.
One of my friend, Azam, he's Qatari, and he always send me these videos, like, his drone goes like as high as the drone possibly
Yeah.
can go, and then looking down, still not is not enough to cover all the whale sharks that is
Yeah.
around. He says sometimes 6, 7, 800 of
Yeah.
them.
Yep.
uh yeah,
Wild. Yeah.
yeah.
And big, like big, big, big. So yeah, we're gonna look at this sort of aggregation and see if any of those sharks are pregnant. And one of the things that has limited this technology in the past is that the scan depth. And so, right before the evolution of this aquanaut that we have, the deepest you could penetrate a shark was about 30 centimeters. And whale sharks are big. And I think a lot of the previous studies just couldn't penetrate deep enough to see if that was a pregnant or
Their
not.
skin is thick as well.
Very thick, yeah, very thick skin, the big livers. So you have to really penetrate deep inside an animal to see. So we're in our tiger shark work, right, underwater, we're scanning at depths of 20 centimeters, right? Uh, and you can imagine a whale shark is a lot bigger than a tiger shark. So I think the technology was limited in how deep we could scan, but now we can scan almost 60 centimeters into an animal. So I think that what we've developed, we'll be able to see if shark's pregnant, whale shark's pregnant or not. It's gonna be super cool.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing this, and yeah, I'll tell Azam as well. Like, he probably will be
Yeah.
around.
Oh yeah.
He's always there taking photos of these whale sharks, and yeah, I'm excited to hear all about it. And obviously, we recently did a collaborative project between pelagic divers, Formula Dive School, and MIR program. In a lot of people like Filippo, Lenny, Nathan, Tiana, Panda, everybody was really involved in this project. Yeah, like, so I think you can explain what was the finding, how did we do it, how many sharks, and like the results and stuff. Like, I mean, I know as well, but I think it's better if
Yeah.
you talk
No.
about a little bit details.
Well, the whole part of this project was that it was it was collaborative, which was amazing, right? That's how you advance this science and these types of research is you have to be collaborative. Uh, and I think that it also had been going on for quite some time, right? Formula Dive School had been collecting data for since 2017 or something like that, right? And then, when you talk about photo IDs, what they were doing, it's that information can be really time consuming, a lot of work, right? But it can also be really important and viable when you look at, who's here, population sizes. And when Lenny jumped in, right, he took it to another level. He was actually looking at, the sharks and how they were changing over time, right? And one of the things that they were noticing was that some of the sharks were getting bigger, right, over the year, and then all of a sudden disappearing and coming back really thin. So the hypothesis was, were the sharks pregnant or not? But there's no really way you can tell if a shark is pregnant unless you run an ultrasound, okay? Because tiger sharks eat a lot, right? And they get their stomachs really full, and maybe they just ate a lot, okay? And we've done a lot of our work, and we've seen sharks that have been really fat and they weren't pregnant, and we've seen sharks that weren't really fat and they were pregnant. So the only real way you can check is to do that ultrasound to look inside. And this is kind of how I got involved. You know, I think there was close to 270 sharks that have been ID'd, and they've tracked a lot of these sharks for multiple years. And so there's some really cool data with that. And for me to come in to an established project that is highly collaborative and where I can help answer a question, right, and explain some technology and do some training, like, this is kind of what we do, in the Big Fish Lab and Oregon State University is really engaged like this, and we love it, right? And so for us to come in and take a look at this data and then be able to scan 35 sharks that we were here, 35 sharks in,
Wow,
in,
that's
in 12 days. I mean, when I was in Tiger Beach for 8 days, I scanned three tiger sharks, right? I think um, in Playa del Carmen for bull sharks, I think there were maybe a total of 12 sharks, right, that were there. And Bimini, there was one. And so
Only Gaia.
Yeah, only Gaia. That was it. So for me, when I came here, my first day, I was like, maybe we'll get 10 sharks. It'd be great. It'd be amazing, right? To really look at this. And then I think after the first day, we had 6. I'm like, this is going to be absolutely insane. So, for me to sit back and think about it, it's like we've accomplished really a lot here, right? We've answered some really great questions that goes back to really support the hypothesis that this is an important place for tiger sharks. I mean, of the 35 that we scanned, I think 70% were pregnant. I mean, that number is astronomical. That's totally insane. I think 60% were early term, so in the first couple of months of pregnancy. And I think another 5% was midterm and another 5% were late. So you've got mixed gestational stages too, which is really interesting. So I think there's a lot of really cool next steps to this project for sure. And I'm hoping, that, those will come to fruition.
Yeah, one of the next steps, definitely I've been thinking also, like we talked about this as well, getting um an ultrasound
Hmm.
and keeping it here,
Yeah.
which costs like
Yeah.
what, 40,000.
40,000 is a lot of
Yeah,
money. Yeah.
it's a lot of money, but I'm sure we can, through probably crowdfunding or
Yeah.
some sponsors, and we should be able to get it.
Hmm.
And then we were talking the other day, like we could scan, I don't know, once a week or like
Yeah.
as or whatever, pregnant sharks around. And I don't know, like if we do it for, let's say, for 10 months until they leave, what kind of data are you hoping to first of all, it's never been done.
Never been done.
Never
Never
been
been done.
done
Never been done.
in
Yeah.
anywhere in the world. So
Nothing.
like
Yeah. Be incredible.
like in your point of view, what kind of data we could collect if we have a
Yeah.
ultrasound scanner? Yeah.
Well, I think that for one, if we take a quick step back, what we've done this week has never been done before.
Really?
Right? Yeah, this is
Oh,
like
this amount of sharks in
this
one
amount
time.
of sharks, linking it with the photo IDs that have been collected, like that's never been done before. And to find that these sharks are in different gestational stages, like at the potentially the largest, aggregation in the world of tiger sharks, or at least in our area, or this area right here, right? That's amazing, right? So that's it. That's, and a set alone is incredible. But if we could, you know, track the gestation of the animals that are here, I think that's the really important part is to see, how those babies are growing, right, inside mom. Okay, how long it takes to get to a certain size before they leave, because we really don't know how long gestation is in tiger sharks. It's 2024. There's really been only a handful of studies that have looked at this through dissection, right? And this would be groundbreaking in the sense that we're using this technology to do this non-invasively in an area. So we would be able to look at, we were here for 2 weeks, but there's going to be sharks leaving, sharks coming in. What's their stages of gestation? How long do they stay? How big are their babies growing? I mean, those are all questions that nobody has, right? And this could be, first evers here at this tiger zoo area, right? Which is really, it's incredible. So and then that really sets you up for the different kind of other studies or phases that might be out here, because there are other sharks here too, right? Hammerheads and threshers and other species. So that can be applied to them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited, like for future science. Definitely it's a continued effort that we all can put together and like probably execute it here, like you said, as far as I know, this formula is probably world's largest tiger shark
Yeah.
population. ID'd. Maybe there are places which has a lot of tiger shark, but this is known and ID'd and verified.
Yeah.
We have over 270 tiger
Mhm.
sharks ID'd, and most of them are pregnant, as we are finding out. And then yeah, it's also important to protect it, and this one of the main interests for us to go through all of it is like to give this data and like make sure the government of Maldives and the city council and everybody is aware of how special
Yeah.
this place is, and put some regulations. And obviously ecotourism is good for the economy, but also at the same time we have to protect the thing that is
Mhm.
bringing the
Yeah.
tourists to the island.
Right.
So right now there's no proper regulations around, especially this large shark diving in the Maldives. Actually today my phone is non-stop people sending me messages. I just want to highlight this, so also we can, like cut this part and post it again as well, like for to aware people. Is this accident that happened in Holomale? There's a dive site called Shark Tank. I don't know if you're aware of it. So which has tiger sharks, great hammerheads, lot of spinners, bull sharks, and like stingrays, and it's an amazing dive site.
Yeah.
But one of the liveaboard guys, obviously they also no experience shark dive guides, and they took a marlin head and went down, and the guide was holding the marlin head. Uh, I also want to emphasize what marlin head does, right? And there was a time that here also we get excited if there's a marlin head, we put it in the water. And one day I remember there was 48 tiger sharks just for the marlin. I don't know
Wow.
why they're so
Yeah.
attracted to marlin or marlin heads. I don't know. Maybe you have a better answer, but uh, whatever reason it is, like the tiger sharks are really attracted to marlin head. And this in from this video, it seems like this guide was holding the marlin head. Tiger sharks were coming in, and there was one guy, 3-4 guests, and obviously the shark couldn't. She can smell. She didn't know who had, and then she goes and bite one of the guest tanks, the other one's hand, and goes to the guide, and the guide was like, he was gonna redirect it, but then he pulls his hand back, and he still was holding the marlin head. And finally he dropped it, and as far as I know, one of the guests got bitten on her hand, and minor scratches, but no,
Yeah.
not like a proper bite.
Yeah.
And so again, my hope is through these kind of findings, so governments are more like more alerted and do proper regulations to protect these places, train the people who dive, and use these location dive guides, the tourists who come here, and everybody must be very well trained, because we don't want to harm the sharks. We don't want to have any issues with the sharks and human interaction, obviously, which is fun, but we also needs to be done safely.
Yeah, another thing that's a great point. First, these are wild animals, right? And people need to understand these are wild animals, and that's their home. The ocean is their home. They eat there, they reproduce there, that's where they live. So when we enter that home, you know, for lack of a better word, we become part of the food chain, right? And we need proper training so that we can ensure that it doesn't happen, right? And that's critical, I think, because this is an amazing, special place that, in order to grow the right way, I think you're right, needs regulation and training and everybody, on the same playing field when they're under the water.
Yeah, so that is the hope, hopefully these kind of science projects, and so far the city council, the local community, all the stakeholders were very excited for this project. And it's the first time actually over last 3-4 years that I've been running a business here, like people actually got together about and agreed about one thing. First time, which was amazing. Normally everybody disagrees with someone, and then it never get done, but this project seems like really like it showcased that it's doable. Something like this is doable, so I'm very excited actually to, I'm sure Lenny or you guys gonna do a proper report of this and present it to the council. And
some of the preliminary data we presented to the stakeholders last night was it was cool to see, right? It all kind of come together, right? And yeah, the ultimate goal in all this is to publish it in science, right? Get it reviewed and look at it, and everyone from that perspective can see how exciting and great this place is. But to spin it in a different way so that the general public can understand too. And I think that's what we need to do, and legitimize everything that we're doing here on all levels. Because you're right. When I first arrived on my first day, the first night was stakeholder meeting, right? And uh, after that meeting, when I asked the rest of the team, how do you think that went? They're like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. Usually there's people screaming and, pointing fingers, but everybody loved it, because I think it benefits everyone. It benefits the island. I think it benefits the sharks, the industry, which it's unique and unusual. And I think that makes it special.
Yeah, totally. Um, what are the future projects that you hoping to do here? Like, obviously, apart from having an ultrasound,
Yeah.
like, do you think tagging and things, is it something you think we should do, or like?
I think that's the logical when you talk about phases, right? I liked your description of phase 2, right? More ultrasounds, right? At different parts of the year to see how these babies are growing, how it really aligns with some of the stuff that Linny and Formula, Dive Center or school has put together, the work that you've done, right, and Pelagic. So how does it all fit together, right? That's at the very least, if we can come out here again, one or two more times this over the next 12 months would be great, right? But then, I talk about phase 3, phase 4. I think that's where tagging comes in to see where the sharks are going to, right? And what's that corridor? What's the dispersion from here? Are they all going the same atoll, or are they all going to different areas? And then how do you, better protect that pathway and that atoll where they end up? But there's other really cool things too you can talk about would be, how are these sharks related, genetically, right? I mean, is Rose like
Yeah,
the alpha female here and she's got, is she a grandma, right? And
yeah.
she's got, daughters coming here. We've got daughters coming here, right? Like how's
I
that
was
fit?
actually thinking about that today because the other day I asked, I think Lenny or you guys when you were having lunch, and I asked you guys, what if we take a DNA sample and can we figure out their age? But you guys
No age,
said
yeah. Can't do
like
age.
you have to cut it
Yeah.
like in half to
Yeah.
find the age. But then what I was thinking today is like with DNA sampling, like if we take all 270 samples and see what's their genetic profile, who
Yeah.
is related to who is brother, who's sister, who's cousin, is it possible like
Yeah,
through,
absolutely. Which would be super cool, right?
and
And
it's no harm in the sharks, and
no,
it's
I
just
mean, yeah,
like,
you're looking at there's lots of different ways to do it, but the size of the sample you need is not even as big as your fingernail, right? I mean, that's how small it is. So
it's a skin
a skin
sample.
sample. Just
Yeah.
you don't hardly even, no one would even know. Shark wouldn't even know that it had taken place. Um, and we could, and it would be really cool to see what the linkages are there for sure. And it'd be really cool to go offshore as well and look at the interactions with the males. Okay. And I think that there's so many really cool things here. Even when we are at the dive site, right, and we're trying to do ultrasound scans, I don't know all the sharks, like they look very similar to me, but I do see interactions that are occurring,
Yeah, for sure.
and wow, it looks super cool that, as one shark's coming in, Rose kind of gets in the front of them. Not going to come in. This is my area. What happens after this, right? When they go into the blue, after the diving is over, I think that would be really cool. I mean, they make these the CAT scans and these like social behavior tags that are temporary. They're on the shark for 2 or 3 days, but you can see how they interact, and who's dominant. Maybe Rose is beating everybody up, in the blue, and that's why they're all afraid of her. Uh, that'd be really cool to look at too. That those behaviors as well. So I mean, it's a great system, I think, to do a lot of cool work.
Yeah. Today I did a free dive session in the blue. Um, and we had this little container, like aluminum container, a stainless steel container. We put like one tuna head
Mm-hmm.
down like to 5-10 meters, and it was first time. And I've done a lot of blue dives here, but that was the first time we had like 40
Wow,
in one frame. I counted 25,
that's insane.
and they wouldn't let go of this barrel. It's basically in a washing machine. You
Yeah,
take the barrel
yeah.
inside the washing machine, and we just put it down there, and then it was like, reflecting a lot of lights on it. So
Mm.
this guy, and it was I was blown out the whole time. The guys who were with me, they could tell like I was screaming. I was so
Yeah,
excited today and happy, and
so
like,
cool.
you do Tiger Harbor every day, and like, it kind of become normal,
Yeah.
your day to day life. But then when you see something like this in the blue, like they're displaying completely different
Mm-hmm.
behavior, challenging
Yeah.
each other, biting of each other, and like throwing each other
Wow.
off, and even there was no hierarchy between older ones or bigger ones or small, even smaller one challenging the bigger one pushing the smaller ones away. It was
Hmm.
like vertical swimming
Yeah.
straight up to the surface. It was insane. I
Wow.
think, to come back to your point, it would be very interesting to see and analyze the different behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
at least who's the boss in
Who's
the
the
blue.
boss?
Yeah.
Exactly. And you talk about the tagging, right? I mean, these are completely non-invasive. They pop off. Like the whole tag comes off like in 2 or 3 days. So you wouldn't even know the shark was wearing it. Um, Taylor and Alex, the other parts of the Big Fish Lab, just got back from Ireland where they did it in basking sharks. So really cool stuff, right? That could be done here, I think. And this is a great model area to do it.
Yeah. And also, we should not forget treasures, hammerheads,
Oh yeah, yeah,
silver tapes.
yeah.
You got hundreds of
Hmm.
silver tapes at the plateau. And they used to, interestingly, they used to come to the harbor, like where the tigers are feeding, and they used to feed together
Hmm.
for a few years. But last year and this year, the silver tips, not many of them show. Maybe one or two will come like here and there, but like it used to be hundreds of silver tips just come into the harbor feeding.
Wow.
Yeah, but now they hang in the plateau area. They don't come to the harbor. It's also very interesting.
So interesting. Yeah. I mean,
And I have seen here silver tips, hundreds of silver tips, hundreds of gray reefs, tiger sharks, hammerheads, threshers, all hanging at the thermal climb, maybe like
hmm,
40-50 meters down, like just, swimming as a
hmm,
one big
yeah.
school,
Wow.
which is also, I don't know.
Super unique. It's very
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
hunting, the
Yeah.
tigers are hunting, or they're just chilling with the hammerheads and threshers and silver tips and
Hmm.
grays. um in my observation, every time I see, it seems like they just stay in up current and have the cold water going through them. Yeah, like
Yeah.
just enjoying the cold water.
Hmm.
That's my observation. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, what's cool about this area too is that there's a lot of history, I think, right? And now everyone is becoming more inquisitive about it. And I think that's really important as you kind of look at the next phases and steps. And I think that's going to really help push these other projects forward.
I hope you get to come back in few months and
Yeah, me too.
continue this project. And um before, so I have this tradition in my podcast here. Like, I ask this one question to everybody, and nobody has like a straight answer for this, but I always ask this question, uh that moment, like someone film pulling a plastic straw out of
Yeah.
a turtle nose, which changed the entire plastic straw
Hmm.
industry, and
Yeah.
everybody, started producing
Hmm.
biodegradable, plastic straw and all these things. And what do you think? Of course, we all know, we didn't talk much about this in this book, but we all know how threatened the sharks are. 100 or I don't know 150 million sharks killed every year
Mhm.
and so on. There's a lot of fear around the sharks generated by media and movies, Hollywood movies and stuff. So in your opinion, what could be a moment like that could change people's perception towards sharks?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I think we're always trying to spin that dialogue as A, we're not on the menu, right? We're not, if we were, you know how many more people would be missing along the like anywhere in the world, right? We're so easy pickings. Uh, but the other component of that is we're trying to get people to think of sharks as moms, right? That they're carrying babies, right? And they're important to the next generation. And we're hoping that that dialogue of, hey, we're not on the menu, but did you know that sharks are actually moms too, that they need our protection, is a way that we can do that.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
Yeah,
James.
I love it, man. You've been amazing here.
Yeah.
Hey, it was an honor to die with you. I mean, you're incredible out there,
Yeah,
for sure.
thank you so much. It was an honor to have you here on the island and doing this amazing work. And also, it's an honor to have you on my podcast. And
I can't wait to come back in a couple
yeah,
of months.
you're
All
always welcome to come back. Right. Thank you so much.
right, thank you.
Yeah.